Shalom and welcome to Once Upon a Soul, an exploration of 68 unique stories inspired by the teachings of Rav Asher Freund, Zatzal. This podcast series is sponsored in loving memory of Mrs. Klari Safran, Alea HaShalom. May the neshama of Rivka Sarah Bas Rabbi Yehושע have an aliyah. Maisa B'Noiflim, a story about those who were falling. Shahayu briyos, there were creatures, there were people. Shahayu halchim, that were walking, v'noiflim, and they were continuously falling. V'chala elam hayu halchim umagiyim, and the rest of the world was walking, proceeding, and reaching their destination where they were intending to go. V'heim, but these particular people, this group, hayu halchim, they were also walking along, but v'noiflim, they kept on falling. And they were incredibly pained by this. Everyone else is succeeding in reaching their destination. They're making it to where they're going. But we are falling time and time again. And there was a wise man who came to them and told them, Al kol panim takumu. At the very least, despite what you're experiencing, stand up, v'tamshichu lelechas, and carry on walking. V'shamu la'atzasai, and they listened to what he was telling them, a wise piece of advice. V'hayu kamim, and they were standing up, u'mamshichim lelechas, and they were continuing their journeys. V'noiflim, and they were falling again, oid pam, v'shuv kamim, and they were standing up again. V'hayu ha'olam kairim oisam, hanoiflim. Now, the world had previously referred to these people, had put a label on them. They called them hanoiflim, those who are falling all the time. But v'hisraglu kol kach lipol ad sheye'etzlam pele gadol eichem kamim va'imdim. But to those who were watching, and to those who had a deeper insight into what was happening here, they couldn't believe that after so many failures, failure upon failure, falling again and again, and continuing to rise, and continuing to gather their strength and continue their journey, the people watching them couldn't believe it. It was a wonder to them. Eventually, it became like their falling, that wasn't so incredible anymore to them. Like that was their situation, that was who they were. But this was such a wonder that they kept on getting back up. Until despite the fact that they had been labeled by others as those who fall, they reframed their situation and began to refer to themselves as those who get back up. Not the noiflim, the kamim. Not those who fall, those who rise. This was such an incredible thing that despite everything that they had been through and despite everything that they were going through, they continually found it in them to get back up and carry on walking, despite how broken they were over having fallen, and despite their certainty that they wouldn't make it very far. That wasn't what concerned them. And also everyone else all around them began to refer to them no longer as those who fall, but rather those who rise, those who get back up. And this is how the story ends. It's not, and they all lived happily ever after. That doesn't say that they eventually got where they needed to go. This story is just the story about a shift. It's a very real story. It's about a story that might not have the happiest of endings, but it's a story that's ending and beginning all the time. Perhaps it's a story that just is. It's a story for today. It's a story about finding the strength to reframe our circumstances. So often, based on all of the experiences that we have and challenges that we face and failures that we experience again and again, almost on the verge of the insanity spoken about by Albert Einstein famously when he said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. But somehow we do that. Somehow we're shigoyin l'david. It's like a certain kind of holy insanity where it makes no difference. We try again. We know our limitations. We know our circumstances. We know that we're human beings. But that doesn't stop us from continually getting back up and striving to live like angels and even higher. It's a holy kind of insanity. But there comes with that experience a certain degree of frustration. We begin to label ourselves. We're just never going to make it. Forget it. And we want to give up. And even if we don't give up, and even if we keep on encouraging ourselves to carry on seeking healing, to carry on seeking Kedusha, to carry on seeking to live a life of connectivity, of broad-mindedness, of perspective, of depth, of sensitivity, we put a label on ourselves. We call ourselves the Neiflim. We call ourselves, forget it. It's just, that's our situation. We resign ourselves to this perspective of failure. And the tzaddik Rav Asher Freund is teaching through the story of his amazing Talmud, all these incredible stories. He's teaching us that we have another option, that we can reframe our circumstances, that we can look at ourselves not as those who are falling all the time, but those who are getting up all the time. What a privilege to be among those that have this holy kind of avodah, that no matter what we experience and no matter how many times we feel that we fail, we find the strength to get back up. That's our identity. We're not those who fall. We're those who rise. And in our rising, in our getting back up, and our finding the strength to carry on, in our realizing that the journey is the destination in and of itself, day to day, just what my next step is, choosing not to give up. That's all I have. And it was worth coming down to the world just for this. So we bring a tremendous kavod to Hashem, a tremendous revelation of the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how much He appreciates what we give Him when we give Him our hope, when we refuse to submit to the devastating coldness, the krirus of despair. We have the opportunity to reframe our circumstances. And when we change the way that we look at ourselves, like it happens in the story, they first started referring to themselves as hakamim, and guess what happened? So did everyone else around them. That's another deep lesson that emerges from this story. It's time to change the internal narrative. We're holy, we're sweet, we're pure. We're battling on behalf of HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the end of time, climbing up the icy wall of Emunah, and somehow, uvechol zos, with everything that we've been through, shimcha lo shechachnu, we still continue walking. We're not those who fall. We're those who incredibly continue to find the strength to get back up. Hashem should help that we should experience this journey in higher and higher iterations. There's always going to be ups and downs. But to be the kamim, that no matter what level we reach, and no matter what yurida and whatever madrega we experience, that's our spiritual essence. We get back up, we carry on the journey, and we realize that every step is precious, irrespective of whether it leads to what may objectively be seen as success or failure, subjectively to HaKadosh Baruch Hu personally, and to the chelik alekami mal that we have sitting at our core. It's all success. It's all riboy k'vayt shemayim. Ashreinu chevra. Be'ezer Hashem, we should be zecher to take this story mamish to heart. Hakamim, we're not the neiflim, we're those who get back up. Thank you so much for listening. Wishing you the most incredible day. Ashrecha, ashrecha.